welcome to the May edition of Hawick News with me, Kira.
And me, Connor, the news headlines this month.
Hawick High School is running the Battlefields Trip once again. We interview Mr. and Mrs. Hamilton. The Broken Bodies Trip took place. And we have the sports with Ryan Lowry.
Hello, Hawick High School has been running battlefield trips to France and Belgium for several decades now.
We have interviewed Mrs. Riddle, who is leading this year's trip, to find out more about this great event.
Our reporter Russ has more.
Following 4 successful decades of Hawick High School battlefields tours, this year's trip is looming. Taking place over roughly 5 days, the group will get the chance to visit Ypres in Belgium, where the group will go and see the trenches, cemeteries, museums and last post ceremony at the Menin Gate. They will also stay in the town of Albert in France. The group will visit the Somme battlefield, as well as taking a trip to Disneyland Paris and going through the Channel Tunnel in the final days of the trip. The trip used to run every second year, alternating between the Somme in France and Ypres. Run jointly by the English and History Department since 2010, this annual trip will take place this year at the end of June. I have been speaking to Mrs. Riddle about the trip. Why is the trip open to seniors?
It's open to seniors because we do, at Higher History, we actually do a Great War topic. So it's quite good for some of the seniors to have gone over and looked at what the impact of the Great War was. And I think it takes maybe a bit more maturity as well, because some of the younger students might struggle a bit more with that. It's quite a serious and quite a depressing at times trip, but there's lots of fun parts as well.
What do you think the pupils will learn from the trip?
I think the sheer size of the casualties that were suffered in the First World War, I think you hear about them, but until you've seen the amount of graves and the impact of that, and you get to go to the museum, you get to see lots of different things about what has happened, and just see the images from the time as well, and it just hits home much more. They get much better perspective of what's happened.
What is one of the highlights of the trip?
Well, I think the pupils would probably tell you Disneyland Paris, but I just like really getting to know the kids on an individual basis, and it is really educational, and they get to learn so much. And we try and keep lots of links back with Hawick as well, because we visit Newfoundland and there's people from Canada that actually trained at Stobbs and in Hawick, so we try and link it back. So I think there's lots of real positives.
What do you most like about the trip?
As I say, I like getting to know the pupils individually. It's totally different from being in the classroom, getting out there and learning. And because it's a joint trip with English as well, there's lots of poetry and novels that I hear like links of that I've never really thought about before. So it's a really worthwhile trip, and it's really good fun. So all of it really.
This has been Ross Lothian reporting for Hawick High News.
This month's teacher interview is with Mr. and Mrs. Hamilton.
The Hamiltons are retiring at the end of the year, and I was delighted to be able to interview them both. I'm delighted to be interviewing Mr. and Mrs. Hamilton this month. So the first question is, why did you go into teaching?
Over to you.
Over to me, right. Because I like being with young people. I wanted desperately to be with young people and to pass on my knowledge and expertise. And you?
Well, I went into teaching. I remember sitting in an exam hall when I was 12, and there were 100 12-year-olds sweating over an exam, and there was one teacher sitting at his desk just reading a paper, and I thought, I'd like to do that.
You're famous for organising great school trips. What have been your favourites?
Oh, definitely Berlin.
Absolutely Berlin, yes.
We did a number of senior visits to Berlin, which were just wonderful. What's your favourite?
I think that the Berlin trips are definitely by far and above the best that we've done. Pupils were able to really engage with the language and the culture. We were able to go all around Berlin. It was fantastic.
And the nightlife was great.
How long have you been teaching for?
Well, I started in 1986, It's a long time ago, a very long time.
I was 85, 1885, so that was even longer ago. But in the black and white days where people wore shorts, and that's when I started.
All right, okay. What have been the biggest changes in that time?
Well, the biggest changes by far, I think, have been the reduction of languages teachers, perhaps. When we started here, there were many more. There were 8 or 9 languages teachers, and now, unfortunately, only 3.
Yeah, that's definitely it. We used to be teaching 3 languages all the way through. Maybe that day will come again, but at the moment, we're more or less down to 1.
Mrs. Hamilton, we believe you were born in Germany. Is this true?
No, this is not true.
Was? Ich dachte, dass du Deutsch warst.
Nein, bin ich nicht. Ich
Ach
bin
so.
nicht in Deutschland geboren, sondern nur hier in Schottland, in Falkirk.
Now she tells me I thought she was born in Germany, but she says it was her mum who was born in Germany, and she was born in Falkirk.
My mother is German, that is correct, but I was not born there.
What brought you to Scotland?
Well, we had family in Scotland. We were 10 years in Oxford and then came up to be closer to mums and dads and grandparents.
Absolutely correct, yes.
Are you looking forward to your retirement?
Very much so. I wish to do
yes.
something that's a little different from the routine that I have at present, yes.
Yep, definitely time for a new challenge, something different.
Do you have any messages for our viewers?
Stick in there, your time will come.
Ohne Fleiß kein Preis. In other words, work jolly hard and you'll succeed.
Now it's time for News in Brief.
School ties S1 to S3 blue, S4 purple, S5 green and S6 red are available to buy at the main office, all priced at £4 each.
Finish with your old books, looking for a new home for last year's favourites? Bring them in for a chance to win. Donate your old books to the school library for a chance to win a £10 Amazon voucher. See Mr Clark in the library for details.
The S1 poetry competition has been judged and the winners are first Abby McCartney, second Scott Landers and third Jake Schoensberg.
This month, Mrs Richardson took pupils who are interested in jobs in the medical sector on a fantastic trip to Queen Margaret's University.
The trip was called the Broken Bodies Workshop, and if you watched our report, you would see why.
A group of 30 S2 pupils from Hawick High School travelled to Queen Margaret University in Edinburgh last week to take part in a Broken Bodies Workshop, where they were able to follow patients through assessment, treatment and rehabilitation. The pupils were given hands-on experience of an X-ray department, learning about radiography and how much can be learned from an X-ray prior to treatment. The next workshop was surgery, where the pupils were able to try out the equipment used in a keyhole surgery on a patient who had knee damage. All of these procedures were using dummies, not real patients. The physiotherapy department staff had the pupils trying out walking aids and exercises to strengthen patients after operations or accidents. The occupational therapy staff showed the pupils aids for dressing that are used with patients who have had a stroke. The device for putting on your socks was a great hit, as well as the equipment for making sandwiches using only one hand. Some of the pupils also attended a podetary workshop where the lecturer almost had them believing they were going to observe a procedure to remove someone's toenail. Faces were turning very pale before it was explained it was only a talk. The trip has hopefully encouraged some pupils to think about the many career opportunities available in health professions.
Now it's time for the sport with Ryan Murdy. There have been some really fun sporting events this month.
The Ivan Lang boys versus girls hockey match is occasionally controversial and is always a much anticipated fixture of the year.
Also, this month was the staff versus pupils football match.
Ryan was on hand to see who won the high-profile matches this year.
Last month, the Ivan Lang hockey match took place. The Ivan Lang hockey match celebrates the life of Ivan Lang. Ivan Lang was from Hawick and had a well-off father. He was an exceptional hockey player and soon got himself into the Olympics. He scored goals, becoming the first Olympic hockey player from Hawick. Unfortunately, he died during the First World War and was buried in Gallipoli. The hockey match was running for the 9th year. The boys beat the girls by 7-1. The trophy was presented by Ivan Lang's last remaining relative, and Mr. Taylor. The match overall was a win for the boys. In other news, the teacher versus athletic people match took place. The game featured teachers like Mr. Young, Mr. McKeever and Dr. Robertson. The people successfully won, beating the teachers once again. The game was a lot of fun and will be taking place next year. This has been Ryan Murdy reporting for Hawick High News.
That's it for this month. From me, Kira.
And me, Connor.
For more news, look us up on Apple News, Facebook.
Twitter, or find us on the Hawick High School website.
See you all next month with our prize giving video. Goodbye!